This is an address to the United States General Assembly Special Session on Drugs on behalf of the United States. Drug abuse and illicit drug manufacturing and distribution have reached epidemic levels that are destroying families, communities, and putting the security, health, and prosperity of nations at risk. This is a common theme within the global community, and it is a threat to all members of the United Nations collectively. It is the official position of the United States that internationally, the United States is committed to sharing examples of effective practices with countries facing similar challenges, including technical assistance to help partner governments develop drug demand reduction workforces and professionalize drug treatment and prevention services. This presentation is intended to introduce the current problem and define primary opportunities and U.S. resources of converging global interest within the problem area and identify collaborative and cooperative opportunities at the strategic, tactical, and operational levels. Global security, health, and finance are all target areas impacted by the illicit activities that represent significant threats to the global community at large. The many agreements and treaties between our nations stand as a testament to our international commitment and resolve to curtail the manufacturing and distribution of illicit drugs within our global community. The United States would ask its partners and allies to exercise principles that were agreed upon at the 2016 United Nations General Assembly on Special Session on Drugs, and stand with the U.S. in its efforts to rid the global community of this menace for the benefit of all. Why does this matter? Well, consider this. In the United States alone, the cost of illicit drug use amounts to $193 billion per year. To put this in perspective, that is more than the GDP of Greece, a country of 11 million people. When the cost of the U.S. drug usage is compared to the rest of the world's countries in terms of GDP, it ranks 49th. As drastic as that figure is, an even more sobering thought is that according to Jeffrey Sachs, the amount of money needed to end global poverty in 2016 was $189 billion per year. Reality dictates that not all of the money currently going towards illicit drug usage and the impacts associated with it would be readily adjusted to solving poverty, but it would certainly provide a much-needed step in the right direction. So who does this affect? It may seem like much of the attention of the drug epidemic is focused on the United States, but it is important to note that it isn't just the United States impacted by it. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, the Northern Triangle of Central America, comprised of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, is the most dangerous place on Earth not currently in a war. The average murder rate in this region is higher than anywhere else on Earth. Violent gangs like the notorious MS-13 and Maltruca have member numbers in the hundreds of thousands, and the majority of funding for these groups is through illicit drug trade and extortion. But yet, there are other problems caused by the drug trade. If the rainforests and the people that live in and around them weren't already suffering enough, the clearing of forest for cocaine production, as well as the infrastructure needed to facilitate these enterprises, results in vast tracts of land being cleared as well as indigenous people being displaced. There are so many facets to this problem. Most importantly, if the reason for action in this situation wasn't already apparent, consider the most absolute important aspect: the cost of human life and capital. The U.S. loses 116 people a day to the opioid epidemic alone. Multiply this figure for other illicit drugs, and then compound that across numerous other countries, and the death toll spirals up. What happens when resources and lives are lost as a result of this issue also rears its head, and the cost to international stability and the turbulence it causes. Fragile governments around the world struggle to fight the massive influence that drug producers and traffickers wield, all the while trying to maintain order in their tenuous leadership roles. You see, the drug problem isn't a personal issue, nor is it a state issue. It is a global issue that cannot go unchecked because it represents the loss of so much potential and genesis of so many problems. Solutions: international cooperation, security, strategic shared data systems, and training. The U.S. Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs offers two primary shared data collection systems to prevent the transfer of precursors between countries that have been identified as drug manufacturers. These systems allow full cooperation between international partners to share information on sales of precursor materials. International counter-narcotics training and funding is managed by the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, with a focus on encouraging a law enforcement agency's self-sufficiency. The goal of the organization is the development of local host country enforcement institutions that can remove drugs for circulation before they get to the United States. This training is provided through the International Law Enforcement Academies and is provided at the tactile and operational levels. U.S. training takes on two forms: planned bilateral assistance programs in target partner countries with regional training and international participants from multiple countries. International cooperation, security tactical regional training centers. 5 separate international law enforcement academies have been established to deliver tactical training in both country-specific and regional formats. These academies were set up to support emerging democracies, help protect U.S. interests through international cooperation, and promote social, political, and economic stability by combating crime. The program has successfully completed training for over 65,000 students from varying countries. These programs help develop an extensive network for its alumni and helps develop leaders and decision makers in key organizations. International cooperation, security at the operational level. Several U.S. agencies form the backbone of its operational level engagement with the international community. The Drug Enforcement Administration, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, along with the Coast Guard, all implement cooperation at the international level. These agencies provide a series of training and technical assistance programs that allow cooperation at the operational level to enhance international cooperation and curb the illicit manufacturing and distribution of illegal substances. International cooperation, health, strategic demand reduction. Drug demand reduction is a key foreign policy tool for addressing the interconnected threats of drugs, crime, and violence. It is also a critical component in efforts to stop the spread of HIV and AIDS, among other toxic adulterants found in illicit substances. Demand reduction is a strategic solution will rest on 4 pillars that will form the foundation of how the program is implemented. These pillars include developing a demand reduction workforce, professionally drug treatment and prevention services, building global networks and communities, and addressing populations with special clinical needs. International cooperation, health tactical. The U.S. Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics institutes a multiple of programs aimed at demand reduction through awareness, education, and research. This strategy, as defined, calls for a comprehensive, balanced approach to the drug problem that targets prevention, treatment, recovery, research, and international cooperation. The United States encourages its international partners to participate in the tactical level programs to improve awareness and education within the international community. International cooperation, health, operational. U.S. Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs supports international and government-supported NGOs to implement drug prevention and treatment programs. International cooperation, financial, strategic. Estimates suggest that well over half of the gross profits of illegal drug sales are channeled into money laundering. While some drug money is laundered inside the country, some is also hidden or reinvested across borders, constituting drug-related illicit financial flows. The Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs uses bilateral training activities to strategically educate and share information on money laundering activities. This strategy is implemented at the tactical level, with training through multiple entities available for international cooperation activities. International cooperation, financial tactical. Solutions implemented at the tactical level involve aid for foreign governments in dismantling money laundering and financial networks that directly relate to drug trafficking, training on working with new cryptocurrencies, e-payment systems to identify money laundering techniques, and establishing greater transparency in business ownerships and transactions that are normally anonymous. These critical areas allow awareness and development of a knowledge base consistent with technological advances. International cooperation, financial, operational. International operational capabilities are implemented by the DEA, FBI, ICE, Border Patrol, and the Coast Guard during routine international interdiction exercises. In conclusion, the United States 2018 International Narcotics Control Strategy offers a multitude of programs at the strategic, tactical, and operational levels for international cooperation. The United States remains committed to the international community in efforts to reduce drug use, manufacturing, and distribution, and welcomes cooperation within the international community within the structure of this proposed strategy.